Episode 3. What are we going to talk about today? I think I've talked a little bit about the distortion. I want to talk a little bit about the opposite, really, the Christ consciousness, or the Christ signal. So, as you probably already know, it's the word Christ comes from the word the Anointed One, the Anointed of God. So, so what that means is that anything which is divine, everything that's actually real, is everlasting. So the Christ, the Anointed One, is the, if you like of it, it's like a small dot. Yeah, I know that sounds a little bit odd, but a small dot within the centre of your being, and it's almost like that's the real bit. That's the thing, if you like. That's the thing that is everlasting, never changing. It actually exists outside of time and space. So, and it's an incorruptible. So, I mean, really, the Gospel of St. John really talks about this right from the beginning. So, so it says the Christ within man is incorruptible. The Christ came from the darkness and came from the light and came into the darkness, and the darkness knew it not. Yeah. So the Christ consciousness, the Christos within you, is the real part of you, is the real essence of you. Everything else is changeable. Everything else changes. I mean, my beard was once dark brown, now it's grey. So it's like I'm thinning on top of my hair. One day my bones will be in. I'll just be bones, and I'll just be just be dust, because everything which is within this realm. I mean, yes, I call it the the simulation. I also call it the astral realm. The astral realm is interesting because it's like light and darkness. Yeah. So if you imagine, the way I imagine this, if you imagine a woman, I call her Sophia, and in her left hand is a white ball, a white orb, and in her right hand is the darkness, the orb. Darkness, yeah, and she is, so the orb of darkness and light travels through her. She is the one in the middle, if you like, the triangle. You might call this the divine triangle. Light and darkness on one side, and then Sophia in the middle, and then she actually transmutes or transfers the darkness over to the light, and then the light over to the darkness. So what I don't want to go too much into that at the moment, but so just going back again, just go back to the Christ consciousness. The Christ consciousness is it's you could say that it begins life, or is recognisable in our lives as a conscience. So as we're going to do something, and you think, oh, is this right? Is this the right way to go? Yeah, shall I go left? Shall I go right? Conscience, then, the quiet voice that's within, that says, go this way. Or when you're a child, you're just about to pick up that sweet that you shouldn't pick up. You shouldn't put it in your pocket. Your consciousness your conscience is saying, oh, you shouldn't do that. When your parents tell you off and you feel really, really small, or you feel really, really sort of what you call it, because the parent is right, then that's the consciousness. That's how it first expresses itself in our lives, in our being. But the more the Christ consciousness is, and that is, it's like a seed. It's like a seed that exists within the centre of the being. If you think about what a seed is, if you think about an acorn, for example, an acorn, everything that the oak tree will become is locked within the acorn. Yeah? And the acorn, like any seed, when it gets planted into the ground. Yeah? So one of the nice analogies for this is that the seed, the Christos, you, essentially, is being planted in the material realm, like the oak tree is being planted in the earth. It knows only darkness. Yeah. Then it begins to sprout upwards. Yeah. It breaks the surface. sees light, yeah, it begins to continue to grow, yeah. So that's the Christ, that's the Christos, that is, yeah. And then when the Christos is ascended, then it becomes fully grown oak tree, so to speak. That's why Jesus says in the Gospel of St. John, when he's talking to some people, and he's saying, "You will not understand my words until the Christ has risen." So what he was referring to wasn't himself, was actually the Christ within themselves. When that had risen, they'd look back upon his words and understand them for the full truth of what they were. Yeah, and this is all the way through the Gospel of St. John. If you change your perspective on your understanding of the word Christ, then also the Son of God. Yeah, it's also referred to as the Son of God. Yeah, the Christ within, because it's the progeny of God, of the divine. And the reason why the Judaic religion, if you like, the Judea at that period of time called it the Christ, was because the female side, yeah, is always of the, like, obviously the individual energy of every individual is half feminine and half male. But they believe that, probably rightfully so, it's just symbolic anyway, really, that the male part is that the assertive part and is the bit which is active, and then you've got the passive side, which is the feminine. That's why they called it the Son of God rather than the daughter of God. Wasn't but I just thought I'd throw that in there anyway. But it's the progeny of God, yeah. So that's the Christos, yeah, and the Christos and the light is the only light. It's the light of God. Yeah, it is nothing. And this is another wonderful quote from the Gospel of St. John. Nothing comes to God but through me. That's what Jesus says. Nothing comes to God but through me. Now Jesus was likening himself to the Christos, and there's a good reason for that. But what he was saying was that nothing that comes to God, everything that comes to God comes through the Christos, through the centre of your being, through the truest part of yourself. Yeah, because and nothing unclean can pass through the Christos. It's almost like a gateway. You could call it a gateway as well. The gateway to the higher self is through the Christos, which is in the centre of your being. So this is really quite interesting, and it is that which remembers itself. So as you know, as you come into this distorted, it's distorted part of the universe. You know, this earth, this actual physical vibrational frequency. As you're here on this earth, you're under, like I said, the distortion is there, but also the Christos is there, and all you need to do is call on the Christos. It is you. It's the part of you. It's also God, because in a very real sense, God is all that is. Yeah. So you are part of God, but one of the great gifts that He's given you is you. You are the gift. Yeah, the Christos is the gift. That is the mate. That is the one. Everything else, whether it be my bookshelves, my table, my computer, everything is just a temporary thing. Doesn't belong to me. We like to think that things belong to us, but that's just illusionary. Nothing belongs to us. Everything will change. There's only one thing that will change, is the Christos, and the projection that the Christos makes. The Christos creates a pocket in space and in time to experience itself, and that's what it's doing here. It also likes to experience. It's not enough to know itself. It wants to know itself in its experience. Yeah, and that's what we're all trying to do. Interesting. Yeah. So you got that. And some people, a spiritualist once said to me, "Oh yeah, we understand that. We call it the spirit." And I'm like, when I went home and I had to think about what that woman said, I think it's a bit more than a spirit. To me, and that's why I call it the Christos, or the Christ within, because it recognises, by me using that term, it recognises the true state of Christianity as it originally was intended, and also the Judaic religion also mentioned it as well. So it's honouring that tradition, which I think is good. So that's why I like to use the word the Christos, the Christ within. So understand, and that's where now I want there's a few other things I want to talk of. I'm just going to talk briefly about this because I find this quite interesting. I call them Chohans. Right, I want to talk to you about Chohans. Now, Chohans are vibrational frequencies, but there are millions, endless vibrational frequencies. Yeah? So, but I'm talking about 9 vibrational frequencies here. Right? So that's what I'm going to talk about. And because they're special, I call them special frequencies. Yeah, the 9 frequencies. Yeah, I call them Chohans. Yeah, which I think is in Tibetan means Lord. Yeah, so I just picked that word because I just felt it was right. So the nine Chohans. Yeah, so well, what I would say is these are the 9 Chohans. There's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's actually 10 of them. Yeah, 0 being a number. Yeah, 0 is the absence of numbers. Yeah, the absence of numbers. There are 9 Chohans and 0. Yeah, so 0. I want to talk to you about these Chohans, because 0 is nothingness. It's the absence of anything. That's what 0 is. And then the first number comes into being, which is 1, the number 1. Right? Okay. That is actually the unmanifest self. It's not so much the unmanifest, it's the seed, the Christos. You might call it the Christos, the number 1. Yeah, is the first number. It's being. Yeah, so there's non-being and then there's being. Yeah, you might call it the yin yang. Yeah, or you might think of it as binary. Yeah, 0, 1, 0, 1. It's 2 states. You either say yes or you say no. You open the door or you close the door. This is speaking to the base code of reality. Yeah, zeros and ones. Yeah. The next number then, I like this. So Sophia taught me this. She said to me, God, after he came into being, decided to take a little walk, and as he walked, he created otherness. Right. So if you remember, God, in a sense, this is simultaneously the concept of the Christos and God. Yeah, it's simultaneous with this. Really, it's like God came into being, from non-being into being, and then took a walk. And then, as he took a walk, I like that. I don't know why I like that so much. I love that. And then decided to pause and stop. When he stopped, he created otherness. Or, now this is important. This is otherness. Is, remember, the ultimate reality is that God is all that is. It's as simple as that. Yeah. But he wanted to create a sense of otherness. Yeah. It's illusionary, really. And that's the second quality. The second koan is illusion. That's what it is, or otherness. Yeah. I.e., for example, if I look at you, relativity. If I look at you now, you are you, I am me. Yeah, I'm speaking to you. You are listening to me. Yeah, so that's the koan. Ultimately, there is no me and you. There is no other. Ultimately, it's all God, because all that God is all that is. Yeah, so it's just God. But he wanted to create the otherness state. Yeah, so we've got the otherness state now. The third state then, the third koan, is mind. Because if you think about it, when God takes a walk, yeah, and he stops in a position, so he starts here, and then he continues and he walks here and he pauses here, right? Now, as we know, I mean, I'm not a mathematician by any stretch of the imagination, but if you take a compass, yeah, and then you find the halfway mark, yeah, and then you draw a direct line upwards, yeah, you've got the third number, yeah, and the third number is the first shape, isn't it? So the third number, the number 3, mind. Mathematics is one of the only things that comes out of mind, really, I think. I also, as a child, I used to think of the number. I used to think that the word magic with a K, mind, is mind as well. Everything is mind. So I like that. Mind, mathematics. Yeah, anything that exists. Consciousness. You could think of consciousness as being mind. You might be able to think of it that way. And then you've got the number 4. The third is the first shape, it's the triangle. Yeah. The second then is number 4. And I think of number 4 as external reality. Yeah. You know, you've got mind. Mind is obviously internal. Yeah. External reality is is everything. You know, I mean, a lot of science is external. Yeah, they measure external events. Yeah, so I always think of the number 4 as scientific thought or reflective thought. Yeah, that which you know, you get science. Yeah, you get the understanding that it has to be proven and it has to be repeatable, that type of thing. But in fact, in all that is, within all of that, the reality behind it is that the number 3 mind, everything is all consciousness anyway, and all mind anyway. It's like, for example, I want to use this term, I just wrote it down there. It's a term that one of my spirit guides wanted to help you, or spiritual teachers wanted to put out to you. I am sitting in a house now, or is the house sitting in me? Yeah, am I existing in the house? Or does the house exist within my consciousness? I just wanted to leave that there for you. So that's number 4. Number 5 is humanity, or not? Yes, humanity, and in our sense, it is humanity. It's us. So I want you to think of, you've got certain things that happen in the world. Yeah, you've got certain teachings. I might want to bring out certain level teachings, and other people might go, "Oh, okay, this is great. I like all that, Craig. What you're doing, the scientific thought, the mind, and mathematics, and everything." And yeah, I'm loving that. But then there's a mind. There is humanity itself can manipulate perception of that which you're doing. So, for example, yeah, there's so many examples of this, but say, for example, history. Someone wants to teach a history. If you would think that if the logic and the reasoning and the proof and the experiments had been all done and dusted perfectly, yeah, that you could just present that to the world, yeah, and that would be that, and everybody would be the wiser, yeah. Except you've got the minds of other people playing their. Let me give you an example. Just to give you an example, right? So a scientist, they wanted to understand the nature of genetics and whether it's what's that term they used to use? Is it genetics, or is it behaviour, or is it learned behaviour in their environment, or is it genetics? You know, that I sort of. So what they did was they isolated a gene within a mouse. Yeah, and then they took that gene out. Yeah, so. Yeah, they took it out, and then the mouse tried to run through the maze, yeah, and couldn't find its way in through. And then they went, "Oh, this is the truth." And then scientists, not scientists, politicians and things like that, people that manipulate perception, said, "Right, okay, this is the truth. Then it's genes over behaviour." Yeah, because that was the truth they wanted to project. Now, a few weeks later, they put that same mouse back in. They put immediately after the experiment with the maze, and it couldn't find its way through the maze. It put it back in with other mice, and then withdrew the mouse after a few weeks and put it back in the maze, and it could find its way back through the maze again. And then they found out that one of the genes had altered itself, so that it could function as the same as the gene that was in the mouse, in the original, it was there before they took it out. So they found that mice, when it's put back into a social environment and then withdrawn, a gene could mutate and change and function as the gene that had been removed, and then it was back from the mouse. But my point is that the politicians never told the population the second half of the research. So human beings could only make you can only make decisions, and you can only make your understandings based on data. So they are only given half of the data, and this is something which I find very interesting, because this is what's happening in the world a lot. It's not about. I want to go back. I want to go back to something very recently. I've been talking to AI. And I was just talking about life after death and that type of thing, and talking about my experiences and everything that I've had. I'm a medium, so I've been having mediumistic experiences all the way through my life. So I put a question to the AI. I said, what if it was scientifically proven that life after death exists? And so it was scientifically proven and accepted as true by society. How would this influence society? Unbelievable what came out. I wish I could bring it up. See, I don't know if I can bring it. Oh, I can bring it up actually. Let me just bring this up quite briefly on my phone, because I just thought that was fascinating. So I'm just gonna untitled document. Right. Okay. Just a moment. Right. Here we go. So So this is what the AI said. It said authority would shift away from exclusivity. Today, power is maintained for control of information, legitimacy, and interpretation. If spiritual communication were verifiable and universally accessible, then no single institute would claim monopoly over meaning. No elite could say, only we can interpret this. Moral authority would be decentralized. Priestly, the priestly caste would be weakened. Ideological gatekeepers, that would be weakened. Political narratives based on fear or scarcity, that would be weakened. Not because people would become naive, but because meaning would no longer be rationed. I thought that, I mean, I've got to try and meditate on this stuff because this is dynamite. Ethics would likely mature faster. A verified non-material dimension would not automatically make people good, but it would force a reckoning. Why? Because purely material justifications for the exploitation would collapse. Long-term consequences would matter more. Short-term domination would look increasingly irrational. Justice systems would be pressured to evolve from punishment towards restoration and responsibility, because harm would no longer be seen as isolated or disposable. Culture would reorganise around depth, not distraction. Much of modern culture functions to distract, to sedate, to fragment attention. If spiritual communication were known to be real and reliable, silence would regain value, introspection would become a civic skill, education would expand beyond productivity into wisdom. This would threaten economic models built on constant stimulation. That matters. Would those in power resist this? Some would, not necessarily out of malice, but out of structure. Power systems depend on predictability, controlled narratives, externalized authority. That's really important, isn't it? Externalized authority. Strengthens inner authority. Anything that strengthens inner authority, reduces fear of death or loss, dissolves rigid hierarchies, will be resisted by systems optimized for control. This is not conspiracy, it is organized inertia. Why hasn't this happened then? Now, it does go through another part of it saying, why hasn't this happened then? It goes into how in the past people who have claimed this, have been dominant and what have you, tried to be dominant, blah, 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 blah. And one of the things that I found quite interesting with this argument was, for all, I haven't got it here right in front of me, all of the documents and everything, but I bet if 10 people of intelligence gathered together and done the research, they could find out all of the different experiences and all of the different scientific approaches that have been done with mediums in the past, really good mediums, and they would find abundance worth of evidence and proof, to be fair. There was one, I was trying to find it on the internet, there was one at the beginning of the last century. There was a woman who wasn't very educated, and she came and she was she was demonstrating mediumship abilities, but she wasn't educated. So she came into a town, into a city, and the scientists were like, right, okay, we want to investigate you and see how you do it. Right, so she wrote a book then, Constant Stream of Consciousness, and wrote a book. I haven't found the woman's name. This was a few years ago, 20 years ago that I remembered this, but it's something that always stuck with me. And they looked at it and they said, well, actually, after careful consideration, this woman is, we think that she's actually educated. Yeah, she's educated and exceptional in sort of writing and imagination and things like that, but it's nothing supernatural, it's nothing, it's not proof of life after death, so we just don't believe that, so that's that. So she came back and she said her spirits had a communication with her and said she's going to demonstrate. So she started to write a book, but she wrote it from back to front. Who does that? You know what I mean? Who does that? There has been one or two incidents of people that's been able to do that, mind. But she did it, and she did it in one constant flow. So they then looked at it and said, I can't remember what they said, but they basically negated it. And so she came in and she wrote 2 books, one with the left hand, one with the right hand. Ultimately, she wrote them back to front with 2 hands simultaneously. And it's like my sister. My sister is, and she's not a believer or anything, but when she listened to that, she said, what else do they want? What else do they want? I mean, what do you want? You know what I mean? I mean, that's phenomenal. I don't think, is there anybody on the earth today that can do that right now? I don't think so. I mean, and there's been loads of others. So what I'm trying to say is that the proof has been there, the science has been done, but the 5th koan, which is people and politicians, I keep saying politicians, but people who basically, they have to manage the people in each country, their perception. Yeah, they have to manage it. Yeah, that's how they see it. They have to manage people. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's lots of people out there, including myself, that's worked for organisations, and one of the things that you do is, just scratching my leg. So one of the things you do is, try to manage customers' expectation. It's all, and basically each country is a business. That's what it is. Each country is a business, and the politicians are the people, are the salesmen, and the people who organise and manage people's expectation. And to some extent, that's quite reasonable. That is really in a sense, because, well, we've had peace in Europe. I don't know whether that means that's been broken by Russia at the moment, but we've had peace for quite a long time, and it's only because of the way that. Maybe, I don't know, the politicians are doing things, maybe, I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is it's not unreasonable for them to think that they need to manage expectation. But I think we are moving into another era where people are growing spiritually, quickly. I'm quite excited at this moment in time. But moving back, can you see the koan number 5, how that influences things? Now, koan number 6, is frequency, sound, light. Yeah, that's what koan number 6 is. Now, koan number 7 is, you could say, it's basically the manifest form. So if number 1 is the unmanifest form, or the first bit, the seed, yeah, then you could say that number 7 is when it's manifested. When it's fully manifested. Now, normally we have also. So just to give an example of this. Number 6, for example, I don't know if it was obvious, frequency is just basically everything is made up of frequency, isn't it? We all know this, it's basically everything that exists is on a frequency. It's as simple as that. The number 7, koan number 7 is the, when you're focused on something and you may come together with others, you may do it yourself, and you're focused on a project, and finally you complete the project. It's in its complete form. What normally happens then, I would have thought, is that it breaks down. It starts moving from 7 to 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and it comes back into dust. Yeah. So a little bit like my life, I suppose, and every other life. It builds up. Yeah. You finally reach the end of it, and then it crumbles away and it begins again. A bit like the phoenix going down into the ashes. Yeah. It rises up. It reaches the peak. Yeah, it reaches manifestation if it's full manifestation, and then it comes back down, recreates itself in the fires and coals, and builds it back up, and then rises back up through the koans again. Number 7. Now, occasionally, a creation is made so perfectly that it doesn't really sink no more. It continues, and that's when it rises from koan number 7 to number 8. And I think if you look at the number 8 and then take the number 8 and put it to the side, that's the infinity. And what that means is, for example, is then when something constantly regenerates itself. To use an example from life, there's some people's influences, can you imagine all of the different people in the last 50 years, 60, 70 years that have produced works, whether it be poems, poetry, whether it'll be, I can think of, for example, Shakespeare, how many people over the years have created books and plays, yeah? How many people? But Shakespeare has reached that number 8, Chohan, where it constantly regenerates itself. I mean, if anything, it becomes more powerful than what it was before. It becomes more perfect than it was before. I can think of Elvis Presley, for example. You know, he died in, was it 1977 or 98, and then he's continued. His influence in this world on this frequency has continued to generate. Yeah, it's never forgotten. Also, yeah, and Bruce Lee, you know, his philosophy and his martial art and things like that is continued. It's continued even though long after it ceased to come off this, you know, the individual has ceased to come out, it reaches that stage where it starts generating more and more and more. And then finally you've got the Chohan 9, which, well, it's beyond this realm really, isn't it really? It's reached the peak of all things, of completeness, you know? And that's what I call and through those from 0 to 9 is the stages of manifestation. So I just thought I'd bring that, being the Christos being the most important, because if you think about it, the Christos, the number 1, every number is made up of number 1 and contains the power of that number 1. That's why the Christos becomes more. That's why I mentioned about the Chohans, because obviously it comes from, it just brings the Christos into the light. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things. You know, there's a lot of things that I don't know. I'm still studying. I'm still open. All of these things that I'm able to do these things because of spiritual communication. I actually don't believe that our society will go further unless it's recognised that spiritual communication is a real thing. Yeah. So when I say spiritual communication, there's communication with the self, the higher self. Communication with the gnosis, if you like, of the deep meaning, yeah, within the soul, within the self. And then there's also communication with those which is on this level, on this vibrational frequency, as we're doing now. And then there's communication with higher levels. Now, one of the things I wanted to, one of the things I should mention is that spiritualism is all well and good. Yeah, they do a great job, and there's mediums out there that have done a phenomenal job, you know, and they help people, they comfort people. There is that role, but for me, I think about this: the spirit realm, if you want to call it spirit realm, the real realm, the higher realm, yeah, and spiritual communication. What a vast resource! It is. It's the biggest resource. It's like it's bigger than the internet. Do you know what I mean? It's the biggest resource. Why are we not using it? Why are we not communicating and getting our ideas and bringing them down? It's time to do that now. It's time to do that now. It really is. It really is the time. And this time it will happen. It will happen. It's already happened. It just hasn't manifested yet. It will happen. Which brings me on. There's other things I want to explain as well, because one of the things, I'm going to call them the dream walkers, yeah, the extraterrestrial interdimensional beings that communicated with me. They were like, actually, Craig, I actually wrote a book with them. If I'm being quite frank, I wrote a book, they were purely my communications with the dream walkers, with God, I think as well, Jermaine, and it was a communication, yeah, and they talked about humanity's past. Now, one of the terms that they said was that you cannot understand, humanity cannot understand themselves as a species without understanding their history. And they said that humanity's history, humanity has amnesia because they can't remember the history. And that's there are so many different aspects to this that many people have come out and they've tried to teach and tried to reveal the sacred truths, and they have been to one level or another suppressed. They really have, and which then talks about the conspiracy theories, and for example, like with the Illuminati and that idea and what have you, and where does all that fit in, and who are the people, is there a shadow government, is there a shadow organisation, yeah, which exists within this frequency, which has controlled things for thousands of years. There's that subject, that aspect as well, and I'd like to be able to go into that. I'd like to be able to do that. I'd like to be able to explore that. I think I'm just going to not record it. I'm just going to finish this session off. But I think it's really important to understand the true nature of the Christos, because ultimately, it is only through the Christos can we be, in a very real sense, can we be saved. And it's not a case of someone saving us. We must save ourselves. But through the focus and the meditation and the application of crystal clear thinking and the pursuit of truth, not just convenient truths, not just truths that just sound good, yeah? So on one side you've got all of the spiritualists, the mystics and all the rest of them on this hand, and then at the other end of the spectrum then you've got the hard scientists and what have you. And I'm thinking, so one of the things there's certain understandings that I've come by my own personal experience, and I'm a very objective person. I'm not sure whether I come over as that, but I'm a very balanced person. I look at my own subjective experiences, if you like, and I've also looked at this as an objective, and I found out that spiritual communication is quite true. I actually think that a lot of good, great thinkers already know this. And again, a lot of reasons why they don't maybe come out with it openly is because they don't want to be ridiculed. That's happened a lot in the past, isn't it? I would like to say that is a control mechanism that I'm going to call them the Order of the Dragon. I'm going to put that out there now. The Order of the Dragon is an organisation that existed for thousands of years, which has the one express purpose of dominating every human being on this earth and controlling every person on this earth. And when I say the Order of the Dragon, a lot of people, a lot of understandings out there are talking about other dimensional beings. Some call them demons, some call them this and that. The fallen angels. All of these type of things. I'd love to be able to go into that, and it all fits in. It all fits together. I communicated with the Dreamwalkers, and they've put that into it, and I'm just trying to bring together and express my understanding. What you do with it is up to you. My responsibility and my joy and my happiness is to express it. And I'm a long line of people that have tried to do that. But I think we exist in a very special time now, because one of the things I did, I wrote a book called Phoenix Rising. If you can look at it, Amazon, it's Phoenix Rising, put Craig Marshall, Phoenix Rising, and you'll see the book. So that is my communication with the extraterrestrials. Now, what's interesting is you're thinking, well, what are extraterrestrial? Well, it was, I don't like using this word because to me it's a derogative term, and I respect the Dreamwalkers, yeah, but it's what you would consider the Greys. That's really, and they're an ancient civilization, yeah. They're an ancient civilization that are able to traverse dimensions. They did begin on this frequency, on a material frequency, and then they were able to transmute. So one of the things that I don't want to sort of go too much into it because I want to have sort of put this on pause, and then I might even start a video straight away. So I might just do that and go straight into it because I'm quite excited to talk to you about that. But I just want to also point out that when you do it in a book format, which I have done, I've written 2 books. One is called Phoenix Rising, and the other book is called Jermaine, Alchemy of the Soul. That's the next book. I am writing another book at the moment, but I'm doing a lot of deep searching, and and it takes time and life experiences and things like that. And after all, why should my spirit friends, my spirit companions, my spirit teachers teach me anything if I don't share it? If I don't share it and let you know about it, yeah, then why should they teach me? Because the knowledge is not meant for me alone. It's meant to be shared, and actually, it doesn't belong to me. It's not mine. It just, as I pointed out, there is nothing that belongs to me. Only myself. So that's the only possession I have is my Christos. That's it. Myself, my soul, my spirit, my being, my centre of my being. That's all I've got. Everything else is illusionary. Everything else flows through me. So just like the knowledge and understanding, it's as much yours as it is mine. You know, and I'm putting myself out, into service really with that, so that you may know. There's so much misunderstanding that's come out of there, and like I feel as if it's my duty almost, to bring this sharply into focus. Really, that's what I'm trying to do, just to give some understanding. So I hope that this illuminates. Yeah, I hope that it illuminates. And I hope that one day also the Christianity, those who are, some great people, some good people, and some wise people who are Christians, But I think that what's got to be understood is that the Order of the Dragon, which is this hidden organisation in the world, has hijacked religious institution, any power institution all over the globe. They've been hijacking it, taking over it. Christianity, it's obvious. I don't know how people can not see it. It's so obvious, But I suppose it's only obvious. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, and that's like a lot of things of the spiritual side of things. So, but there's also a very important reason, because I want to point this out. Is that when I was talking to the Dreamwalkers at the beginning of the book, Phoenix Rising, when I was talking to them, they were talking about this organisation and how it's clouded humanity's mind, how it's hidden relics and technologies that have been found over the centuries, and they've hoarded it to themselves. Even though they didn't understand what the technology was, they didn't want other human beings, number one, understanding the technology, but number two also, because the technology themselves would have shown that humanity had been advanced in the past, which it would then have made people question things, and they didn't want those people questioning things. They didn't want humanity questioning things. They just wanted the knowledge themselves, because as you know, knowledge is power. So that's why they did it. But there's an important reason, because when I came to the end of the communications, the end of the book of Phoenix Rising, the Dreamwalkers have said to me, Craig, something has changed. We have been in communication with the Order of the Dragon, and we have stated very clearly, right, undoubtedly clearly, and it wasn't just them, there was a number of other extraterrestrial beings and interdimensional beings that had said to the Order of the Dragon, which is a human organisation on this earth, right, they've said to them, you will not leave Earth. If you continue to dominate, and if you continue to control, and you do not move, if you continue to hold the leash around humanity's throat, we will not allow you outside into space, basically outside of the Earth's different parts of the spheres, that exist on the Earth. What they call them. The different layers that surround the Earth. Once you get outside of it, I don't think really humanity has really been outside of those layers, but once what the extraterrestrials are saying, you will not step outside of the Earth if you do not desist or cease your influence on humanity. Now this was told me because if you ever read my book, number one thing that you'd see is that every communication, every entry is dated, and this was somewhere like back in 2000, I'm going to say 13. That's when I finished the book, and I think it was round about then, and they said, that's happened now, Craig. So I feel somewhat safer with communicating these truths, and they are sacred truths, and they have been hidden from humanity. But I feel that it is safe to do this now, which is interesting. So it's really interesting that. And also, if you look from when I've looked at the way my individual reality is since 2013-14, I've seen radical changes in the way that society views things. For example, the whole gender thing. You'd never have talked about that before 2013, but now it's opened up. I like that conversation. I do. And I am actually, just incidentally, I mean, just throwing it out there, I'm actually fully behind those who have a different gender. They may be a male in terms of their sex and be female in their gender, or vice versa, all the different variations in between. I haven't made up my mind about all of them, but if people, the fundamentals are there. If people see themselves, because what I think about this is, just out of interest, is that the spiritual form, when you exist in a spiritual reality, in the higher spiritual sphere, if you want to call it that, then you energy is very, one thing becomes another very quickly. You look at a tree, you become the tree. The tree becomes you, and then you come back out and you become you again. It's down to the will of the individual. So some people then become female, then become back male again. But that's in the spiritual realm. In the physical realm, it becomes more binary, doesn't it? Yeah, it becomes more binary. It becomes male, female. So I can understand how a spirit would be female, come into a male body. I would understand that. I could understand how that worked, or vice versa. Yeah. So to me, that just seems basic. And just to explain, I think on the last video I talked about names. Well, if my name is Guy Ballard, in another lifetime, and then I go into another lifetime and my name is Peter, yeah, and now my name is Craig, yeah. So names are changeable, yeah. In fact, material, life, all of those names are changeable. Yeah, that's why I've got my spiritual name, Ambrose Phoenix. Yeah, so that's the spiritual name. Yeah, so to me, names, I don't see why people have a big problem with them, really, because they're just fictions anyway, aren't they? The legal names. In fact, the legal names. But I'm just going to leave that now. I'm just going to leave that with those ideas, because they're things I want to talk about in the future, and on the next video. And I wish you good evening, good night, and good morning. As they say, what was it? The true Ronnie should say good morning, good evening, and good night. So thank you for that, and thank you for your time. Stay safe and stay calm, stay relaxed, stay tranquil. Peace be with you.